fun topic. And Graziano, let us start with you. What can you tell us about the way the organization is reacting?
Well, they're upset, obviously. They're likely to discipline him in some way. What form that takes remains to be seen. He's already been fined once this year for a COVID violation. It's conceivable, due to the concept of escalating discipline, that he could be suspended. But Washington has a tricky situation because they don't know if Alex Smith is going to be back and healthy in time to play this weekend. They are trying to win their division. Taylor Heineke is the only other quarterback on the roster. They may need Haskins to play this weekend, and that's what makes it most disappointing for them. They were hoping that this young man in his second year in the NFL would start to show a higher level of professionalism, a higher level of maturity than what they've seen behind the scenes from him. And obviously, an incident such as this shows that he isn't.
And how about just COVID speaking, taking all of the judgment pieces out of it, if indeed that he is there on Sunday, he's not in masks, they're not in masks. I assume there's testing and all the rest of that. Like, do we know for certain he's even going to be eligible to play this weekend?
Well, all NFL players and personnel are tested every day. So if he was exposed and he tests positive, then he would have to go on the COVID-19. If they found out, this is going to sound silly, if they found out someone he was with in the video had tested positive, then he would have to obviously be on the COVID list as a close contact. But I don't think that's going to affect his availability, just the fact of the video, the fact of his interaction. But, I mean, you know, the stuff you're hearing, like people are yelling into the phone, you're talking to him. His coach had cancer. Like, how do you put your team and how do you put the people around you at risk like this? Just a crazy, ludicrous decision for him to make.
As I said on the radio yesterday, this is not a moral judgment. This is a judgment. It is a judgment. It is about the judgment that he shows or doesn't. Ryan Clark, I'm just going to give you the floor here. When you heard this story, what thoughts went through your mind?
It's unacceptable. It truly is, and it shows a lack of self-awareness. It shows a lack of empathy. It shows a lack of concern and compassion for those around you. This is one of those things. Like, if you don't care about yourself, care about the other people. Care about Ron Rivera, who we were all just excited, got an opportunity to ring the bell after his last chemotherapy treatment. Care about the players in your locker room. Care about your family members. Care about the other guys in this league. Care about your peers, the staff members. And also, don't be a dummy, right? DBD, don't be dumb. There's a perception of you that you are unprofessional. There's a perception of you that you are immature. So you're just going to hand it to him on a platter? You're not going to think that pictures are going to be taken. You're not going to think that videos are going to be out. And listen, everybody like to get their T-Pain on every now and then, right? Make it rain, get bands, do those things. Don't do them in 2020 during the football season. Don't do them during a pandemic. Don't do them when you have people around you who are at high risk. And the other part of it is, and I know people get tired of hearing about black and white, but let's be honest. Black quarterbacks have had to fight a perception of not being smart, of not being professional, or not having the level of accountability to play the position. And in the year where 4 of the quarterbacks that got elected to the Pro Bowl are black quarterbacks, this is another setback. This is another opportunity for people to say, see, I told you, look at this. Right? They said that he wasn't smart enough. They said that he didn't work hard enough. They said that he wasn't professional enough. And now you give them a reason to continue talking. So you can just miss all of the things that I mentioned before about your head coach that shows that you don't care about him. You can miss all of the things that says, okay, you are not protecting the people around you. And just think about it from a football perspective, from a leadership perspective. This is unacceptable. It needs to be punished. It needs to be addressed. I don't know how you can do that because you need him to play quarterback this week, but this cannot happen.
Dominique, what do you think?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's hard to add anything to what Ryan said because he put it so perfectly. It sounds like a grown-up talking. Unfortunately, it doesn't feel like Dwayne Haskins is there. But I don't need to pile on Dwayne Haskins. Everybody's already made it clear why this was done, dumb, and unacceptable. And to Ryan's point, like going to a shake club or having some dancers over to your suite, like that's not that big of a deal if you don't take into account all the context that we have surrounding you and surrounding this current situation. So I think that's what makes it so disappointing. And to another one of Ryan's points that he just made, You said if people are tired of hearing black and white, like I frankly don't care. Then they can get us off TV, because I don't think that's something that we can separate from the sports world in this situation. I do think that it's important. It's unfair that there's a different expectation and a different level of responsibility for black men or black people, frankly. But it is true, and it happens when you do things like this. It reinforces the conscious or unconscious biases that exist out there that hold people back like you. So you have a responsibility to your coach. You have responsibility to your team. You have responsibility to your family. You have responsibility to your community. But you have responsibility as a black man, as a black quarterback. And I believe, Ryan, this is the second year in a row that we had 4 black quarterbacks in the Pro Bowl. So we're headed in the right direction as far as quarterbacks are concerned. And I know that Dwayne Haskins, whether he woke up and watched this show this morning or not, is not looking for all this weight or baggage. But whether you know you're carrying it or not, you are carrying it. It's a part of your responsibility. It takes some of us longer to learn that than others. And from a football standpoint, all that really matters is how well you play. As sadly as sad as that is, that's all that really matters. We've all been on teams, and we've all watched games and watched teams and seen guys make awful decisions off the field. But you know what? If they ball, we find ways to excuse it. We find ways to say popular or say positive things about them. The problem for Dwayne Haskins is he has all the physical ability in the world, but he's falling short. He's a bust by all measures right now. And it's not because of his physical abilities. And that's what makes this really harmful to him, is this echoes the reason why he's been unsuccessful on the field. This is a reflection of poor decision making. This is a reflection of immaturity. Those are things that people suggest why his great talent hasn't turned into him being a great quarterback. So this was a really sad story. It was funny to some degree to watch this guy kind of blow another opportunity like a broken Nintendo cartridge, but it's also sad because you're watching him blow another opportunity.
Yeah, again, the football context of this is that depending on the injury to Alex Smith, he may actually be their starting quarterback in a game in which they can clinch the division against Ron Rivera's former team, the Carolina Panthers. So there's so much football context around all of this. Let's see how it plays out as the week goes on. Meanwhile, let's turn our attention to more traditional football conversation, and it means this. What is going on with the Steelers? Every week it seems to be something different. In week 13 against Washington, it was all the drops. They dropped 7 passes, their most in a game over the last 15 years. That handed them their first loss of the year after starting 11-0. Then they followed that up last week at the Bills. They converted just 10% of their third downs in Buffalo. That was tied for their second worst in a game that Ben Roethlisberger had started, so that felt bad. But then it seemed they had a get-right opportunity on Monday night against a bad team in Cincinnati. But they were the bad team that night. Big Ben completing only 8% of his passes that he threw at least 10 yards downfield. That was the worst by Roethlisberger in a game that he finished over the last 15 seasons. So just in every conceivable way, it has been a precipitous slide for the Steelers. And so, Ryan Clark, I start with you as my former Steeler here. I feel like all season long, I've been trying to get you more excited about the Steelers than you've wanted to be back to when they were, putting together this perfect run. Now maybe I'm starting to see a little bit of why. Can they turn this around in the next 2 weeks?
Can they? Yeah, they can. Will they? I don't necessarily believe they will. Sometimes you just don't have the people. And you look at defensively, they've lost those guys, the Bud Duprees, the Devin Bushes. You're not even playing with Spillane and Vince Williams at linebacker. But when you watch this offense, where's the physicality? Where's the inversion of the line? Where's the inverting of the line? You look at the 3rd and 1 that Snell barely got. It's because the linemen were in the backfield. And now you go to your aging quarterback. And I said it a few weeks ago. They're putting too much on Ben Roethlisberger. You have no run game. You have no play action game. You try to throw short passes in order to create shorter gains, to get runs and catches, to try to pick up first downs. And you can't push the ball down the field. So where do you go? That's all of football. You're not making the turnovers and pressuring the quarterback and getting things done defensively. You can't move the ball offensively. And when you lose a game to the Washington football team who is playing better, you say, oh, okay, that happens. And then you come back and you lose to the Buffalo Bills, who are probably the second best team in football. You say, okay, that happens. But the Cincinnati Bengals, with Ryan Finley, a dude that they didn't necessarily even know if they wanted to start and play the football game, Those are things you can't do. As players, you have to have a certain level of pride. Of players, you have to understand that you need to fix things. And the Pittsburgh Steelers don't seem like they have the ability to do that right now. My question is, who can they beat in the playoff picture?
Right.
This week we have